So we're about roughly at the time of recording an hour removed from Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Now, I want to give Conor Benn all the credit in the world for that performance. He showed bags of heart in there. He did fight reckless at times, but he showed bags of heart. It takes two to tango. A great fight isn't made by one guy doing all the heavy lifting. It's made by both guys essentially doing an equal shift. And Conor Benn, Chris Eubank Jr., they both deserve so much respect and admiration for that performance, for the heart they both showed, because there was both times in that fight where they were both struggling, where they were both tired and they were both fatigued, and they gritted out. The right man won, no doubt about that. But as good as Ben's performance was, and I feel he did go a long way to repairing his image, I can't help but feel that like the Tyson Fury situation when he lost to Usyk. And again, I'm someone who is very skeptical as to whether karma actually exists or not. I feel it was at play here though, because and Eddie Hearn gave a horrendous interview. He gave a terrible. Eddie Hearn is Eddie Hearn 10 years ago was doing very well. I want to say 2015 wasn't necessarily prime Hearn. He was doing very well. He was the best in the UK. But prime Hearn was really 16 up to about 2019, 20. Yeah, I'm going to say 2019 because you really started noticing it when Joshua lost. We had those 3 good years. He was still the best up until Frank Warren came into the equation, or came back into the equation, really. And since then, we've seen a bit of a different Eddie Hearn. Now, back then, Eddie Hearn had no competition. He had all the talent pretty much exclusively signed to him, apart from one or two. Essentially had it all. So Eddie Hearn could give it all this. He had it all. He had it all back then. Now he gives it all this, and it just doesn't wash anymore. And someone pointed out, now I haven't seen this, but Eddie Hearn, some people were saying you could see him look at the footage of Chris Eubank Jr. struggling to make weight, and he had a grimace and like a grin on his face, which to me is just. I'm gonna get into this now in a sec. Right, it's the Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn come to Jesus moment. Eddie Hearn in that post-fight interview, I think he gave Eubank a little bit of credit, but he was talking about Conor Benn winning a world title at welterweight, saying that the fight was close and that he could have won, and that he was now the people's champion. No, Eddie, Chris Eubank Jr. was the man who was applauded and loved by the people going into that fight, and after the fight, it was Chris Eubank Jr. who was the people's champion. Conor Benn failed 2 drug tests, and he needs to rehabilitate himself. This will go a long way, but to insinuate he's the people's champion is a complete joke. That's like Tyson Fury saying he's the people's champion and then charging people in that same stadium. UK record pay-per-view price for a trilogy fight with Derek Chisora coming up to Christmas in the freezing cold. Just because you say it doesn't make it so, right? Actions speak louder than words. I have said that so many times in my life, and I've seen it in action so many times in my life, not just on YouTube. I've seen so many people say this and say that, and their actions are the complete polar opposite. And such is the case here. Conor Benn has a long way to go to rebuild his reputation. This fight was meant to happen October 2022. It didn't happen, not because of Chris Eubank Jr. And there was an even worse rehydration clause in place for that fight, because it was a 158, 157 was the actual catch weight and a rehydration clause. This one didn't have both. It just had the one. Shouldn't have had either, quite frankly. Conor Benn was the reason that didn't happen. That fight didn't happen. Conor Benn went on to proclaim his innocence and to say he was cleared and vindicated. Well, first off, he was cleared by the WBC, when actual fact he was saying, well, the reason this was in my system was because the WBC basically said, no, it's not, but we think it's this. Conor Benn, I'll run with it. The board, it's been dragged out for 2 flipping years, never ever was able to prove his innocence. We believe it's just down to pure as hell jurisdiction, and then the board just saying it's gone on for 2 years, let's end it. There was never any concrete resolution. Conor Benn behaved like an absolute spoiled little child, saying, well, woe is me, the world is against me, I'm the victim. Oh yeah, because people get convicted on DUIs every week. They've been going out getting absolutely S-faced in the pub. But the reality is they really are the victims, aren't they? It's someone else's fault that they drove and the alcohol got in their system. Of course it's not your fault. Of course it's someone else's fault that happened. No, it was in your system. Take responsibility and it'd be all over. This dragged out for 2 years. Could have been done like that. He could have continued his career. He didn't. anyone who said anything, oh, they were ridiculed, they were laughed at. And Eddie Hearn in particular, this is a guy who has spoken so passionately about drug cheats in the past, and that we need to get rid of them from boxing, they need to be banned, blah, 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 unless they're matchroom. Got to read small print there, Eddie, don't we? Unless they're with matchroom. In which case, there's a reason, there's an obvious possibility as to why that's in their system. But if the PBC or Frank Warren throw the book at them, oh yeah, throw the book at them. Throw the book at them. Oh yeah, no one cares. No one cares, a virtue signal, high and mighty, but what if it's your... Oh, no, then it's different. That's different. Never mind the virtue signal, I don't care about that, Just never mind it. Oh, yeah, that's what it is. So all this has not done Conor Benn any favours. And this fight in particular, the build-up, they did themselves no favours. I mean, at the end of the day, and Chris Eubank Jr. has to shoulder some of the blame for this. He has to. Right, he made his bed, he's got to lie in it. He's lucky he came out on top. I've seen a lot of people critique his performance, and was this a vintage Chris Eubank Jr. performance? No, it certainly wasn't. Did he look amazing in this fight? No, he certainly didn't. Did he look fatigued at times in this fight? Yes, he certainly did. Now, those are things you would not necessarily associate with Chris Eubank Jr. He's not a masterful boxer, we know that. He is someone who got by on athleticism when he was a lot younger. He's 35 now, so some of that's going to wane. It has to be expected, fair enough. He's someone who got by on stamina and work rate. There was no stamina, there was no work rate, and he did look he looked his aged at times in there, and Conor Benn still couldn't get the job done. At the end of the day, right, that's a damning indictment on Conor Benn. At the end of the day, Conor Benn, who gave it the big whole, Conor Benn all of a sudden thought of himself as this, Mike Tyson-esque puncher. You name like a Devin Haney, 2 rounds, Chris Eubank, 3 rounds. You hurt him once in this fight, and that's made all the more worse when you consider you only hurt him once, and you literally did everything to have everything in your favour. You had the smaller ring. You tried to get Billy Joe Saunders to wrap his hands. This guy who was not responsible, and I want to point this out, this was a guy, Chris Eubank Jr., who was not responsible for the first fight not happening. And this is the victim mentality again, right? You were the reason this fight didn't happen. You, Conor Benn, you were the reason this fight didn't happen the first time. And he has to go and, bow down and make all these, you have to make these demands, he's to do them. So he has to make a certain way. He has to rehydrate. It's going to affect him. It's a certain ring. It's not his fault that the fight didn't happen. It's yours. But for some reason, he has to make all these concessions. It's ridiculous. And you still couldn't beat him? Jesus Christ. It's not like you're talking about a prime Chris Eubank Jr. who was weight drained and in a smaller ring. You're talking about 35-year-old Chris Eubank Jr. whose best days are probably behind him. And you still couldn't beat him? Now, there is a rematch clause in place for this, and quite frankly, I would like to see it again. I absolutely would. But, guess what? Chris Eubank Jr. shouldn't have had to bow to you to make all these, demands and, the rehydration. It wasn't his fault first time. Well, he's beaten you now, Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn. So he sure as shit doesn't have to do it this time. Oh, hell no. Chris Eubank Jr. should have been making the demands first time. Well, he's definitely going to be making them this time if that rematch happens. So credit to both guys, Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. for this fight. But let's not forget what we've been through and the absolute bollocks we've had to listen to over the last 2.5 years just to get to this fight. It has been non-stop. And Eddie Hearn, certainly this week, and I've seen a lot of people say it, he's really... I think he's done himself damage this last week. I think his reputation, he's done himself damage because Frank Warren is someone... We know Frank Warren. Frank Warren, you want to be careful what you say. He's had issues with fighters. He's had issues with loads of people. But I think with Frank Warren, he's always struck me as one of these guys where when it comes to the fight, I think he is more a let the better guy, let the best man win. I think he is more diplomatic in that sense. Whereas Eddie Hearn, as you've seen this week, seeing a fighter just to try and make, just so he's not fined $500,000, absolutely kill himself, and you're smiling, apparently. You're going through all this, you're not even giving him really props, you're just bigging up Conor Benn after the fight, where he lost, clearly. I mean, your guy couldn't beat a weight-drained 35-year-old over the hill, Chris Eubank Jr. I don't know what more to say. He couldn't beat a weight-drained over the hill, Chris Eubank Jr. That's all I need to say. So Eddie Hearn, and again, Matchroom right now is becoming I don't even know, because at the end of the day, their events, certainly UK based, are dwindling. He is doing Johnny Fisher, Dave Allen. The fact that he's having to sell Johnny Fisher as the next thing, and that's a damn indictment. I mean, Fisher, have no disrespect, but like Dave Allen is his limit. I mean, he's doing well to get life out of this feud, but that's about it. AJ, we don't know what's going to happen with him, and he's near the end anyway. Conor Benn, his ceiling is low, and he's no real, like, Frank Warren signed Moses Atauma. Moses Atauma is going to be a pay-per-view star in the next 2 years. Frank Warren may still have Tyson Fury, who is still probably the biggest, maybe with Anthony Joshua combined, they're both the biggest draws in the UK. He has Daniel Dubois, he has Joseph Parker, he has Derek Chisora, he has Hamza Shearer. Need I go on? And he's doing the zone now as well. And yeah, maybe this is a video for both Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn, but I think that if karma does exist, well, it's finally come to their doorstep. I mean, you can only run for so long. At the end of the day, ask Tyson Fury, he knows all about that. And I think this was a great fight for boxing. This result here was the best result we could have had for boxing. It really was. The right guy won. Chris Eubank Jr., who was hated 10 years ago, was now fully embraced by the people and they love him. And I think that Chris Eubank Jr. is showing his true character, and it's a character that I think everyone can like. It really can. Conor Benn needs to really reflect on things. He showed tremendous heart, but the way he behaved over the last... I mean, when he was shown on the big screen when he entered that arena at Tottenham Hotspur, he was booed. You're not fooling anyone. I mean, Piers Morgan will big Conor Benn up all you want. Piers Morgan is a damn fool. Piers Morgan is a horrible, cretinous individual. And yeah, he'll big up Conor. He'll say Piers Morgan did everything in his power to make Chris Eubank Jr. look bad. Piers Morgan's a fool. He's an absolute fool. So he'll have a go, oh, Conor Benn is brilliant. Yeah, Piers, yeah, you say that. We know what you're like. We know what you're like. So those are my thoughts on this. Let me know yours in the comment section below. Take nothing away from the fight. That's one thing I would say. Take nothing away from this fight. It was a brilliant fight, and both guys deserve credit absolutely for that. But goddamn, we had to go through a lot over the last 2 years. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. Peace.